Welcome to The Jewish Lens, a podcast to discuss anything and everything from a Jewish perspective. Now, please help me welcome the man who controls the media, your host, Jonathan Rosen.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of The Jewish Lens. I'm Jonathan Rosen, and today I am thrilled to welcome the president of Menemsha Films, as well as the founder of the Jewish and Israeli film streaming service, ChaiFlicks. Please help me welcome Neil Friedman. Neil, thanks so much for joining me.
Pleasure to be here, Jonathan. I'm glad we're doing this.
No, me too. Well, yes, looking forward to this. So we have a lot to cover, but I want to go talk about you first a little bit and your background. So where did you grow up? And were you from an observant family at all?
From a Reform tradition. I grew up in Bayside, Queens, New York.
Oh, another New Yorker. Great, a fellow New Yorker.
Yeah. And went to high school there, and then went to the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia for college, and then GW Law School in Washington, D.C.
Well, were you always interested in film when you were younger?
I was pretty interested in film when I was younger because we had somebody in the family that represented MCA and Universal and
wow.
Marlon Brando, so I sort of got the bug a little bit.
Did you get to meet Brando?
What's that?
Did you ever get to meet Brando?
Yes. Matter of fact, when he... my uncle got married for the second time. He's an attorney. Marlon Brando, who was his client, hosted the wedding at his house. So I was there as a junior high school, 12 years old. We were there at the wedding with all the Hollywood people around. Oh my
gosh! Wow, well, you come from a nice background of that. So what were some of your favorite films growing up?
Well, everybody asks me that. I say The Wizard of Oz,
right,
and Godfather, and The Mother and the Whore, which is a French film that I really like, a French New Wave film that I fell in love with in college. I also say Nashville was a big one for me.
Good movie, yes.
Yeah.
So after school, so you worked in corporate law for a while before transferring into entertainment. I mean, just looking at your resume, so you were VP at New Line, Vice President of Business Affairs at Columbia Pictures, President and CEO of the Edward R. Pressman Film Corporation, and co-chair of the Independent Feature Division for William Morris. So how did all that happen? You went from corporate law to entertainment. I'm trying to see that transition.
Well, I think it's the fact that I always wanted to always be learning something new. It's that simple. Each of these situations were new situations, and I had different responsibilities. So I took on a different part of the entertainment business. And looking back, it was probably a good thing that I did all that because, I've had experience in every facet of the business. I mean, I was an entertainment lawyer. I was an agent for William Morris.
You were an agent as well.
Independent film company for 6 years. I was at a studio for a whole bunch of years. So there's not much missing. It's not that I set out to do it that way, but that's just the way it turned out.
So, were you involved very much at the creative side of things at William Morris? Besides.
Well, I think that was the big transition for me. When I ran the Pressman Company for 6 years before I went to William Morris, I was really the chief business officer, operating officer. I wasn't reading scripts, but when I went to William Morris, I was. My strength was financing independent films. So I had to read scripts, and I started to read scripts. One film that I financed was Breakfast of Champions, which was starring Bruce Willis, based on the Kurt Vonnegut book. And I started to, have to have an opinions about material that I was reading. And that situation introduced me and made me really concentrate on this new area of the business, which is outside the business area, and really making my own judgments about writing and creative issues and the financeability of certain films.
So you're at William Morris. This is like a huge agency. So then what made you decide, I guess, to take that risk and go out and want to start your own things in Menemsha Films? I mean, what led into that decision, I guess?
Well, it's a story I guess I could talk about these days because it's a long time ago. While I was at William Morris, I was offered a job at a new art division, one of the studios, And I was betwixt and between that and staying on at William Morris. I'd gotten a promotion. Make a long story short, what turned out is that I ended up wanting to run my own business because each of those jobs were working for big companies.
Right.
And I think I was about 44 years old, 53. Yeah, 44 years old. And I thought if I didn't do that at the age of 44, I would never run my own business. So I took a big leap, with a little hesitation,
I would
but a
say
lot of
yes.
guts,
Right.
with a lot of guts to start my own company. I got to say that, if you run your own company, it's really on your shoulders and no one else's. And it's, a lot of it's luck, but some of it's talent. So I set out to do that in 1998.
Wow.
And for 5 years, we were not U.S. distributors. We were sales agents, international sales agents for mostly European films. I was always interested mostly in European style motion pictures.
Okay.
I wasn't a studio guy per se. I was an independent guy, but with a more of an interest in European films, which I fell in love with when I was in college. And so for the 5 years that we handled international sales, we handled maybe one or two American films, but I hardly even remember there was one or two. Czech, Argentine, German, and we ended up selling. We had 5 nominations in those 5 years for our Academy Award.
Right.
3 of them were for foreign language films, and 2 were for documentaries. So, obviously, when you get to something that you really love, I think, and you get a little luck, that luck starts to pay off.
Sure.
It was a very hot period for us, or for me, with the new company, because everything we touched seemed to go well. And I would say almost every single film during those years we ended up selling to Sony Classics for North American distribution. So,
was there just were there any nerves at all about leaving this agency and going to and just doing it on your own?
There weren't, because I come from a family business, originally, and in my soul, I think that the idea of having your own business and not somebody else's business, where you're working for somebody, was something I always aspired to. And my great grandfather did that when he came over here from Germany in 1880. So I always thought, if he did it, I can do it, or I should try it at least. And that's really, I connected to that, to be perfectly frank, in a major way, of having a family business, and that's what it really came from.
So let me talk about a little bit about the history. You started a little bit about Menemsha Films. So how did everything get off the ground? I guess, and what was the mission statement? And I love Menemsha. I've seen many, by the way. So
thank you. Well, I mean, what happened is my daughter was born in 1996. From 98 to 2003, we were doing international sales. I was, flying all over the world for the next hot director, Argentina, Italy, France. And I spent a lot of time away. And I said to myself, I have a young daughter, and this is not the right way, to be a father. And at that point, I sold 5 or 6 of our films to Sony Classics, and I was watching their release pattern for each of the films. And I said, this is something maybe I can, do myself. And I said to myself that we're going to switch. I can't be away from my own family for this amount of time. So in 2003, we decided to become a North American distributor, primarily, not a world sales agent. And we primarily did Jewish films, but we weren't exclusively in Jewish films. But I'll tell you something funny that happened. I think a second or third film that we had was a film called Gloomy Sunday. And we had amazing luck. Maybe I was young and vibrant and had a lot of energy. But we played this film for 70 consecutive weeks at the West Newton Cinema in Boston, and 54 consecutive weeks at the Laemmle in Los Angeles. And again, it comes back to a lot of luck. And we did $1.5 million at the box office. So most of that, some of it was newly learned skill, but most of it was luck. I happened to focus on a film that everybody seemed to want to see and see more than once. But I had a little bit of a head start on that because I knew this film had played in the same theater in Christchurch, New Zealand for over 2 years. Wow. So that struck a chord in my head. I said, Christchurch, New Zealand, this film played for 2 years. Maybe there's something in this film even beyond what I'm seeing. And that sort of gave me the fortitude, the courage to go out and distribute this film. And and I remember in South Florida, we did $500,000 at the box office, played for 26 weeks consecutively.
Well, that's why I am South Florida, actually. So
yeah.
So
it was an incredible time for an upstart. Let's put it that way.
Oh, that's amazing. No, the first time Menemsha came into my, I guess, radar is I remember the movie Dough with Jonathan Pryce. Lovely movie, fantastic, really funny. I love those types of things. So what goes into the selection process and choosing, which films to get involved with?
That's a great question. I think a lot of it has to do with my parents. I mean, I grew up in Bayside, Little Neck, New York, Queens, and they used to go to the Malvern Cinema on Long Island every twice a weekend to see art films. And I always thought of them as my target audience. and I pretty much understood what that target audience was. That generation 25 years older than myself, that really loved going to the cinema and was committed to going to the cinema every weekend to see an art film. So I guess some of that came from them, but some of it came from myself in terms of how I projected each film and how I thought there would be an audience or not an audience for a particular film. Dough was a very interesting one because when I acquired Dough, the sales agent during that period had not been able to make a deal for Dough in any territory in the world other than North America.
Oh.
And lo and behold, when we went over $1 million at the box office with Dough, a lot of the territories that said no to the sales agent originally went back and reacquired the film. And again, this is just we had a lot of great cross promotional ideas with Dough, and we had an idea about where to place the film at this point, about where the best cinemas were in order to bring out the people and to play for a long period of time, because I told you about Gloomy Sunday and how long that played. And so we sort of developed what I call a Jewish theater circuit, where we'd play in certain cinemas in each particular city. And the Dough did over $1 million. It's just really incredible, and people had a lot of fun with it.
I think it's a really charming movie. I really do. So, I come from a literary background, so I'm wondering if it's the same type of thing. Do you get queried like, "Hey, would you be interested in this?"
Yes. I mean, more and more so, especially because we're specialized. We're exclusively a Jewish theme distributor. At Menemsha since 2012, and now with ChaiFlicks, we're exclusively Jewish in terms of the programs that we put on our streaming service. So I think a lot more and more folks know that this is our area, and we get a lot of inquiries from all over the world now, a lot from Europe, I would say, for Jewish themed films that to see if we'd be interested either for Menemsha or for ChaiFlicks, depending on the film.
Well, so I'm just curious now, which has been some of Menemsha's most successful? You say Gloomy Sunday?
Well, Gloomy Sunday was the biggest hit we've ever had, $1.5 million. We've had, I think, 7 films that have done over $1 million, but we haven't done $1.5 million again. It's for an art house film. Sure. It's a pretty big number. I mean, when you play 70 weeks in one theater in one city, then it's hard to do better than that. And by the way, I give a lot of credit to the theater owner there, because the prior record there was 69 weeks by Cinema Paradiso, and he said, "Hey, we'll hold on until we get to 70, and then we can stop."
That's awesome. Oh, I love that. I love hearing that. Yeah. So I want to get to ChaiFlicks in a moment, but one thing that I'm curious about. Did October 7th impact, let's say, the Jewish or Israeli film industry in any way?
Yeah, it had a tremendous impact.
Yeah,
it's still hard to really put your finger on it. It changes every single day. Some people, how do I do it and make it not too complicated.
Yeah.
I think, let's put it this way. A North American Jewish person probably thinks about two things that are most important, okay, in the world: the Holocaust and Israel.
Mhm.
So either of those themes are going to be interesting to a cinema goer, Jewish cinema goer. I'm not saying that those are the only interested areas, but those more than any others. And in the early years of Menemsha, we did a tremendous number of Holocaust films, and not so much because we were trying to reach an audience, but because I was interested in it.
Yeah.
And I found it fascinating because part of this process, Jonathan, is being interested and educated yourself by something that you're seeing. And with each film that I was educated by, I thought I would, if I had a fairly good education, had, pretty well read, but if something was new and different and discovered by, discovery for me, I thought the same would be true for the general Jewish audience. And that's the basis on which I've acquired a lot of films. And, the Rape of Europa is a good example. I mean, I knew nothing about the art theft by the Nazis during the Second World War. So I got involved in that film, and having read the book upon which it was based. And this was a whole area of the Holocaust, of the Shoah, that had not been presented on film or understood or known by a vast majority of the Jewish audience. And when we went out and distributed Rape of Europa, which was a documentary, we did over $1 million because it was new information that people didn't know. And I got to say that that became a little bit of a film genre, because you have Woman in Gold, and you had the George Clooney film that also was based on this subject. And now I think people all know about this subject just because of the films have been based on this subject that had not been made prior. At the same time, maybe some of your audience will remember this, but when I was a kid, I remember a movie called The Train with Burt Lancaster. And it was one of my favorite movies. And I'm telling you, I probably was 8, 10, 12 years old. And that film was about the subject of stolen art. I didn't connect the two until I started to get into the subject, but I remember this film very vividly.
Now, one thing I'm curious about, though, is you do place a lot of films in festivals around the country. Has there been some sort of anti-Semitic backlash at all? Like, oh no, we refuse to exhibit a Jewish film or Israeli film at all?
Well, we mostly, we do a lot of Jewish film festivals, and we do general, not international film festivals that are not specific to Jewish at all. I think there's an undertone. Okay, there's a little bit of the bigger festivals being careful about any protests against certain kinds of films, which I think obviously is more Israeli themed than Jewish themed.
Sometimes they just go hand in hand.
The last year and a half, we've seen that situation. I don't know if it's an accident or not, but last year there at Toronto International, there were no Israeli films, and this year there's only one. So that's sort of curious, because for years prior to that, there have been 3, 4, 5 films, Israeli films, maybe 2, 3, 4, not 3, 4, 5. But it was a big part of Toronto's presentation. So I don't know the behind the scenes reasons. Another reason may be because the programmers are getting younger, and they have new interests. Okay, and I'm an older guy, and so my interest in, let's say, Holocaust or World War II stories are not necessarily the interests of a 34-year-old programmer. So that may have something to do with it as well.
Just curious. It seems too coincidental to me a little bit, but so let me move on to ChaiFlicks, because it's the Jewish streaming service. people refer to it as, the Jewish Netflix. So how did that come about? How did you decide to go from Menemsha and just to incorporate, like, I guess, a streaming service?
Yeah, we had three films in a row that did over $1 million.
Okay.
One was Dough, the second one was Woman's Balcony, and the third one, which is probably maybe among the best films we've ever released, a Hungarian film, black and white film called 1945. And we sold Dough to Netflix. We sold Woman's Balcony to Netflix, and we were told that you do $1 million, you're going to make a sale to Netflix. 1945 was a film that I don't know how we did it, but somehow with a lot of love and passion, we with our release in Canada, we went over $1 million with the film.
Oh.
And then Netflix said to us, and had a 97% Rotten Tomatoes rating, meaning it had 68 reviews in North America and only one negative. I mean, that's just incredible.
Sure.
So they said they passed on the movie, even though we had done $1 million. And I said to myself, if we're going to rely, it goes back to something we were talking about earlier. If we're going to rely on this third party streaming service to say yes or no, we want to get control over this. We're going to start our own. And we decided to start ChaiFlicks right then and there, which was pre-pandemic.
Amazing. Wow.
So we had a business plan all set up. We had 120 Jewish themed movies. And the first week the pandemic came into being in March of 2020, we put up 40 of the Menemsha Jewish themed titles, and we called it ChaiFlicks. And from there we've been acquiring films and mostly and very importantly, TV series, which was obviously the locomotive for any streaming service. Most of them are Israeli, but not all of them are Israeli. And we've been increasing our subscriber levels, on a constant basis ever since.
Well,
I've done one thing, Jonathan. Really, since 1998, or 2003, you use one or two dates. I've only really been focused primarily on Jewish themed movies. So, I have one expertise, and it's when you spend so much time, you watch so many movies, you think about what to differentiate between films, why this, why not that. I think I developed an expertise in this area, and I think that has a lot to do with ChaiFlicks' success. Even though this is important, I didn't know anything about television series when I started ChaiFlicks in 2020. I had what I did was, because we put 40 films onto ChaiFlicks, I spent 6 months watching every single TV series with a Jewish theme that I could watch.
Wow.
That means all the Israeli films, all the Israeli series.
So right.
Yeah, so that I could start to make decisions like I did with film when I was at Menemsha about what I thought was the right film to license to put onto ChaiFlicks. And I've only grown that knowledge ever since. And I think we've done a pretty good job in terms of the choice of TV series that we have on there. I know the viewing of 6 or 7 of our prime TV series continues all the time. It never stops. People, we get new subscribers, increased number of subscribers, and they go right to these TV series. So that's been very rewarding for us. I think we made some really good choices. Is what I'm saying.
You have some great content on it. I mean, I was just talking about the mix of movies, shows, documentaries. I loved the ones on the history of the egg cream, the striped matzah one, and the Heading Home is on there. The Israeli baseball. I interviewed Nate Fish from the Israeli baseball team as well. So same question as before. Is there what kind of process? Is there like a committee that selects these things for?
It's really myself and Heidi Ocean, and maybe sometimes our marketing head, Anise Modi, who's in Europe. But it's mostly Heidi and I, and we live together. We're partners. And partners in the business. We always, if we like something, we have the other person watch it. And if both of us say yes, we're probably going to go ahead and try to make a deal for it. And sometimes one of us is so strong about something that, we'll fight it out and figure out whether we want to acquire it or not. But we usually have the same opinion. Sure. It is very rare. I mean, The New Black, Unchained, The Lesson, Fire Dance, Labyrinth of Peace. These are all series that are just, there was a unanimous decision about acquiring these series. So these are sort of our big successes. Checkout is another one that we had the fourth season of Checkout coming up in November. So you're the audience. Heidi and I are the audience, and if we like it, I think, now we're my parents' age, so we're really the audience. We're 69, 70 years old. So if we like it, probably our core audience is going to like it.
I think that's the main way to do something. If you like it, you get a sense of things. So one of the I am very curious about, because every time I watch ChaiFlicks or we put it on now, is it possible at all to acquire, I guess, Jewish themed content from the past, from like, I guess, like a bigger studio? I'm talking about, like, to stream on ChaiFlicks, like Chasing Delancey or The Chosen, something like that. Is it possible to acquire those to put on there?
Yes, I mean, I think that's a good twosome there, and I think you'd probably throw in Yentl, right?
Yes, that's right.
That's
Exactly.
the kind of movie that. Yeah, we thought about this from the very beginning. When obviously each of these, like Yentl, I think is owned by MGM, which is now Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not gonna third party license Yentl unless they get a pretty good hefty fee for it.
Mm-hmm.
But your point about picking out the best films, whether they're present and or past Hollywood films, is part of the job, because you're a curator. That's really what we are. Sometimes certain films are too expensive, for us to acquire, but they still stay on the list. Because the whole idea, what our goal is to really leave this as an archives, and have 15,000 programs on this channel, and almost, I think of it like my college library, and then that somebody can go into to ChaiFlicks who's interested in Jewish stories and have almost everything that they could, that's ever been created. So that's a pretty tall task. Some of those decisions are related to economics, about how expensive or inexpensive a program is. But we never say no. I mean, I would love to have Crossing Delancey on the channel. I would love to have Hester Street on the channel.
Gentleman's
I'd love
agreement.
to have Yentl on the channel. I'd be crazy not to.
It would just seem to me it would even make sense for them to have it found by a new audience, like a younger audience.
Yeah, I think what happens, Jonathan, as we get more visibility, we've gotten, we had Kafka series a little while ago, and we got reviewed in the New York Times, in the Wall Street Journal. So our visibility is increasing in the overall entertainment world and in the world at large. So when we're getting more and more calls, and we're seen more as a peer, a streaming service rather than a newbie, and so we're starting to get people that come that ask that whether we'd be interested in putting on their films, because there's no service in the world that has all these dedicated subscribers to watching, and I think this even from where you sit. With these subscribers, it's not a question of wanting to see one thing or two. They want to see everything. This is their, it's like for them, it's a history lesson. It's their PhD in Jewish studies. So they go from one program to another program to another program. And, that's exactly what we did this for.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that, because like whenever something new with Jewish theme comes out, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like all excited, and I was like, I can't wait to see it. So I'm assuming there are many more like me. I just can't. What's the demographic of subscribers? Is it most of the United States? Is it like different countries?
Well, we're available in the English language world except for South Africa. We're in the U.S., Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the U.K. Most of the subscribers are from the U.S. That we have a large Jewish audience, obviously, and the word of mouth is tremendous. Thank God. and the subscriber levels are increasing all the time. We've never gone sideways or down. We've always increased.
Great.
Okay, so that's very reassuring. We're not nobody's getting rich. This is not Netflix where billions of dollars are going to be made in a quarter, but there is profitability in ChaiFlicks, and we have to manage it from a business perspective as well. But the good news is the word of mouth is starting to really get stronger. Based on when you get in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and get articles written about our channel, or programs on our channel, then people start to know about you.
Does the makeup of where, I guess, the subscriber come from help influence the decision of content a little bit?
In what sense?
And this would be an American audience would love this, but I'm not sure if another audience would love this or not.
Well, the American audience is the core of the foundation of the whole.
Let's reverse it. Right. Yes.
So we're almost every decision we're going to make is based on whether you have a core audience from America or not.
Right. I saw that you started.
And by the way, it's a nice thing that the Jewish audience likes to watch subtitled films, but not 100% of the Jewish audience likes to watch subtitled films. So when you bring up Crossing Delancey and you bring up Yentl, or I bring up Yentl, and you bring up Hester Street, obviously we know that English language product is better for our service.
Sure.
Okay, so we're conscious of that as well, and also we're trying to get a younger audience as well. Okay, it's getting younger all the time with some of our programs.
Fantastic. Well, I also saw that you started adding original series, which I've enjoyed, the Schmoozing and Cruising. So, how did that series come about? And is there going to be more original?
Yes, this is going to be a second season. They came to us, they pitched us. We've had a lot of cooking shows on the channel, and obviously, that's a genre. All you have to do is turn on the television to see the genre that's across all channels. But I think this augments the variety of programming, but there's nothing that compares with narrative TV series. Those are the magnets for subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
And having a new TV series that, by the way, is exclusively on ChaiFlicks and can be seen nowhere else is what really generates new subscribership.
So that led to my next question. So you do get pitched series ideas all the time?
More people reach out to us. More of the Israeli companies reach out to us. More of the international companies reach out to us all the time. It's because they know if it's a Jewish program that we're the biggest buyer.
Yeah. So I'm going to have to write up the proposal for the witty Jewish New Yorker talk show thing. So I'll get right on that afterwards.
Right.
so if someone, I guess, coming to ChaiFlicks for the first time, what show or film would you recommend to get them, into it, to get, want them to subscribe?
Watch The New Black.
The New Black is the main one?
Yeah, it's entourage in a yeshiva. It's four guys living together in a yeshiva, causing havoc.
Are there any hidden shows or gems that you would recommend?
Oh man, there's so many. There's so many. Let's see. 1945 is a hidden gem, even though the film did $1 million. We have a lot of documentary series that I think are really Birth of a Conflict. I think that's a brilliant series that we found. It really puts the history starting in the 19th century all the way up to now about how the history in the Middle East, understanding a lot about what went down during the British Mandate and why there's conflict between the Palestinians and Israelis based on what the British, how they handled things.
The documentaries, I got to say, that's the main thing that I watch on ChaiFlicks. I go one documentary after another.
Right.
There's some great ones on there. So what's up for the near future? I guess for both things. Let me ask, what's the next thing that we look for Menemsha and for ChaiFlicks? What's up for the future?
I think it's September 12th, we have a Polish series called End of Innocence. And then on September 26th, we go to Israeli series called Unsilenced, which is really terrific. 1013, if I remember correctly. We have Less Than Kosher. And then we head into check out fourth season and series Chef that starts in sometime in November. And then we come around with new programming in the beginning of the year in January. A documentary series called In the Name of the Father, and that's followed by another Israeli narrative series called Just for Today.
And any new Menemsha films coming out in the near future?
Yeah, Menemsha acquires 15 new films every year.
Okay.
So they're, and we try to, obviously choose what we think are the best. So, we're back and forth with wearing two hats. And, when I'm not working on ChaiFlicks, I'm looking at films from Menemsha because, part of the ChaiFlicks success comes from the success of Menemsha and the awareness of who we are. And we've been the leading provider of films to Jewish film festivals for 20 years now. Year after year. So we have to keep that going. And that's part of our how we're known. That when there's a Menemsha logo in front of a film, either it's a programmer or a person who's in an audience, that they feel like this is going to be a little bit better than another film that they would see.
And what's next for you personally? Is this something that you're working on next?
In terms of what?
In terms of other projects?
No, this is enough to have two companies and program for not only Menemsha, but for ChaiFlicks as well.
Right.
That's more than a full-time job. It's a 6-day-a-week job. That's enough.
I get it.
What I only try to think about is a little, grow it a little bit at a time and make the right decisions in terms of programming. And obviously, we have a whole different marketing division, and people are getting to know who we are, and they are, the one thing that this is why I went into the Jewish film business to begin with, is that it's a very loyal, ardent audience. They are there not only for entertainment, but for education and, cultural education, cultural historical education. And that's really where I come from. And, when I said before about a PhD in Jewish studies, I think that's still what I'm trying to do. I want to learn more and more about my history. And by the way, it comes right back from my grandfather. How the hell did he get here in 1880, from Germany? And why did he start this, business out on the Bowery? And how did that all come about? And where was the family before that? That's all part of what these two companies are.
How can people follow on social media, the ChaiFlicks or Menemsha?
I think you'll see, we have a whole social media, we have 100,000, just on the theatrical side, we have 100,000 emails of people that we contact about our theatrical releases. We have the Goldman Case, the French film releasing on September 6th in New York. There was opened Director's Fortnight last year in Cannes about French anti-Semitism. We're releasing, about, I would say, a movie every 6 weeks on the Menemsha side. So, we're, people, we do a lot of social media. So
ChaiFlicks is on all this, like Twitter and Facebook.
Everything. Yes.
Yes.
That's the younger group here, not the older group like me. They do the marketing.
Got it. Well, Leo, I want to thank you so much for coming on. Yep. I really enjoyed this. I was looking forward to getting to speak to you. I'm a big fan of both Menemsha and ChaiFlicks, so I watch them both.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Let's do it again sometime.
I would love to.
Okay.
Again, this has been The Jewish Lens. I'm Jonathan Rosen. And again, a very special thanks to Neil Friedman. And please like, comment, and subscribe.
Thanks for tuning in to The Jewish Lens, where all items used was strictly kosher.